Hey, this. I don't
Hey,
know
it's
why I had
Brooke
to
and
giggle. We
Terrell
were just having an
here
offline chat about food.
from the openbox.com. We didn't have an offline chat about food. Who's the better cook? It's me!
Yeah, but then I'm gonna be doing the majority of the
But
cooking.
he actually cooks very well.
Yeah,
And he made a very good,
pad thai,
yeah,
pad
okay,
thai,
yeah.
baked ziti,
Yeah. Well, I was just talking about the pad thai.
pad thai, baked ziti.
I was only talking about the pad thai though.
What else
Anyway,
did?
and it was a good baked ziti too. So anyway, welcome. We
All
are going to
right.
talk about what today?
So the topic is the importance of building networks and the importance of networking, right? So we're going to take a look at Matthew 16 verses 1 through 8. Now this particular parable is usually a difficult one, and I know for me when I got into seminary, I was like, yes, we're going to talk about this parable, and nobody could provide a specific answer to this parable because a lot of scholars and Bible geeks go different. Yeah, Bible geeks go different ways with it, but we'll take a look at it. So it's the parable of the dishonest manager, and it's found in Luke, like I said, 16 verses 1 through 8, and it reads as follows. It says, "Then Jesus said to the disciples, there was a rich man who had a manager, and charges were brought against or brought to him that this man was squandering his property. So he summoned him and said to him, 'What is this that I hear about you? Give me an accounting of your management, because you cannot be my manager any longer.' Then the master said to himself, 'What will I do now that my master is taking the position away from me? I am not strong enough to dig, and I am ashamed to beg. I have decided what to do so that when I am dismissed as manager, people may welcome me into their homes.' So summoning his master's debtors one by one, he asked the first, 'How much do you owe my master?' He answered, 100 jugs of olive oil.' He said to him, 'Take your bill, sit it down quickly, and make it 50.' Then he asked another, 'And how much do you owe?' He replied, 100 containers of wheat.' He said to him, 'Take your bill and make it 80.' And his master commended the dishonest manager because he acted shrewdly, for the children of this age are more shrewd in dealing with their own generation than are the children of light." Interesting, interesting parable that Jesus gives the disciples, right? So let's set the story up. We have a store manager. Based on the amount of debt that this manager is owed, we could assume that the manager is rich or that he has a big store or whatever his business actually is, right? So, a few things that we learned from this story is, like I said, the farm is wealthy. The actual estate that is owed to the manager is huge. So, like when they say 100 jugs of oil, that would have been like 900 gallons of oil or something crazy like that, right? Um, what else do we have here? So we see that the manager is actually setting himself up for success in the future. So what he's doing is, because he knows he can't work and because he knows that he's not strong and he's too ashamed to beg, what he does is he actually says, you know what, I'm gonna decrease the debt. I'm gonna pretty much give these people a hookup. So it's like, all right, I'm gonna hook you up. If you owe 100, I'll cut it in half. If another person owes 100, you can just give me 80. So basically, because in this particular culture, what happens is, because he looked out for them, basically, they would have to return the favor. So it was mandated that in their culture and in this time, that if somebody, reduced your debt like that, when you were in trouble or when you were in need, they would help you out. So he knows his job is about to be, taken away. So he's setting himself up to be taken care of. And based on the size of the actual debt that's out there, he's probably going to be well off for a pretty long time, at least until he can find a job, right? Says the owner has high status. Um, we also assume that some of the people who owe some of the people who have debt are rich too, because like I said, their debt is huge, right? So there's a few ways to take a look at the story in terms of the dishonesty, because when you look at the Bible and you see the top of the scripture, it says the dishonest storekeeper, right? So there's a few different ways to look at it, whether or not he was actually being dishonest. And one way is the shrewd or the steward or the storekeeper. He's cheating the master by reducing the size of the debts. Another way to look at the story is that the steward was acting righteously by excluding interest on what had been figured into the debt, because according to Deuteronomy 23:19 through 20, you couldn't put interest on top of that. It was like illegal, right?
It was illegal to put interest on top of debt.
Yeah, so
Damn.
yeah, you couldn't, like, based on
That'd be nice now, right?
based on the practices set up, and the rules set up in the Old Testament, you couldn't compile interest like that. And then,
Are
like,
we in a Christian nation? Like, shouldn't they do
I wish. And then there's also something in there like either every 3 or 7 years, your debt was supposed to be wiped out completely, like in a year of Jubilee.
I mean, it's our year of Jubilee.
I don't know. So, part 3, the steward reduced the debt by the amount of his own commission. So they're saying that because the steward had commission, he takes out the commission and says, you know what, just pay what you actually own, and I'm not going to take anything. So despite these 3 views, which are vastly different, I personally have a perspective on this too. So I'm claiming to be a Bible scholar just for this particular one, because I've spent a lot of time thinking about this actual text and what it means, especially since Jesus is talking to the disciples, and this is like pointed in the direction of the disciples at this particular time, right? So my idea, but do I even want? Actually, let's not jump ahead, right? Because it's apparent that this storekeeper, the manager, is building up his network so he can look out for himself, so he doesn't have to work, basically, right? So one of the questions, I'll pose this question to you since it's just us right now, is it important to actually have a network, and if so, why?
No.
You don't think so?
Oh, is there supposed to be yes?
No, I'm asking you. Like,
yeah, it is.
Okay, so why?
Well, I mean, similar to, well, I think for different reasons. If you want to look at it in regard to business,
Yeah.
that's important because sometimes there can be situations or doors that can be open for you that wouldn't have been open had you not had a certain connection.
Mm-hmm.
And it reminds me of when I was in undergrad, all them years ago, where in the business school they talked about it's who you know is who you know.
Yeah.
And that still exists now, that for sometimes when people are getting jobs or positions or contracts or speaking engagements or whatever, a lot of times it's who you know.
Mm-hmm.
That follows you.
Yeah.
Especially in the time of social media
Mm-hmm.
now, where people are following you, they're looking at what you're doing, and sometimes they could be the ones to say, "Oh my gosh, I've been following this person. They are a great speaker," so then they recommend you. But it is this kind of who you know thing. So I think it can definitely be important in that regard. Another way it can be important. Another way is when you think about, I started saying I thought of this dating. Sometimes people get hooked up.
Nah, that worked for me, man.
For you. But there are people who, oh, my friend hooked me up. I'm not saying those worked out, but it still happens.
Yeah, yeah.
And some of them do work out. Some people have met because, oh, my friend or my coworker or whatever. So sometimes those can be ways as well.
Yeah, I think another reason it's important to network, like you said, is because ultimately it, even from the standpoint of not establishing, deep relationships, it opens up new opportunities. So, like, I was speaking to one of my friends about his contracting job, and I was like, how exactly have you been getting these contracts, or how exactly have you been, finding these opportunities? He was like, basically just from people he knew. So, and even looking back at my career a little bit, although, oftentimes I would send out my resume and send out, go on LinkedIn or whatever and just try to look for jobs. Most of my good jobs have come through networking opportunities, whether or not I work with somebody and they had previous contracts, or I would send my resume to a certain set of individuals and then they would kind of shoot it out to their points of contact as well.
Right.
So I think it definitely could be it could be good for business relationships. It could be good for romantic relationships. I
I mean,
think.
you kind of shot that down, though.
Well, I'm just speaking from like my hookups have never worked well. Like the only I had to listen to God for my hookup. No.
But we were in the same community at that time. And it wasn't like a direct network, but we were in the same community.
Yeah, I mean, but it's a little bit different. 'Cause I wasn't necessarily there for that.
I mean, but a lot of times, even with business relationships, you're not necessarily there for that. Sometimes you are. Sometimes you're more purposeful about it, but other times you're not. You're just making connections and planting seeds, and
Yeah.
or so.
All right. So the question I have for this, which is a little bit different than what actually was going on in the story, but we'll loop the story back in is when you start to build your network, do the people in your network have to have the same values or same beliefs? Now I've had tons of discussions, and you want to go ahead or do you want me to hop in first?
You can hop in. I was thinking.
All right. So um, I think I ask people all the time, especially people who are Christians, because we have so many different types of Christians. You have people who are liberal. You have people who are liberal slash progressive. You have people who are conservative. You have people who are somewhere in the middle. And oftentimes we tend to stay in our separate corners. So like if you don't believe the same exact thing about Christ that I do, or if you don't believe an aspect of the Bible that I do, these people won't even work together. So at times you'll see denominations that are separate. You'll see churches that are just so separate just because everything in their dialogue as it relates to Christ in the Bible is a little bit different, right? But then I also witness interfaith networks to where you have different Christian denominations working together to build communities. Then you also have not only just Christians, but then sometimes Muslim communities are inserted in there, and they did work in an effort to whether it's clean up the community, provide shelter for the homeless, or do things along those lines. So some people feel that if you're not of the same belief, that you can't work together at all. But it's weird because it's like this only comes into play when we are doing things like, I guess, when you're doing things for God, this is when it comes into play. But when you're doing things for, let's use the word secular, for the secular world, it's like it doesn't come into play. So it's okay to build, that may not have the same, at least if they don't have the same Christian values, we can still work together to build a construction company. But if it's out to do, ministry type related things, it's like, nah, that's kind of off.
I think it depends because I feel like for people politically, they might be a little more separate in terms of their networking at times.
Mm-hmm.
So I think there are different areas where people, what's the word? Segregate more. I don't know the word. I don't think it's necessary to do that, but I think we've kind of made it normal to do that.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I mean, you bring up a good point because we actually see it in politics and stuff all the time. You have Democrats, you have Republicans, and they eventually have to work together, and it doesn't seem like they work together well. All of them seem to want to have the same values, or talk about having the same values as it relates to caring for the country. But even that looks different from the perspective of the individual party's eyes. So I think it's kind of it's give and take. I think it's a little tough because we can have the same value like care for the world or care for the country, but then my care can mean I'm gonna tote a gun and support the NRA, and your care could mean, well, I don't support guns and I want tougher gun laws. So it's kind of hard. I think for me, I think I tend to be like, kumbaya, let's all work together. But at times I think I'm gonna have to be realistic to understand that people won't like my theology. People might not even like the fact that we're trying to serve the homeless communities and stuff like that, and that's just how it's gonna be.
Yeah.
Because even looking at Jesus and stuff like that, he wasn't necessarily here to do, like, even just looking at it from my perspective of looking at the story as it happened, as it unfolds. I get the idea that what he was doing seemed blasphemous because they couldn't understand who he was. But the idea that he was trying to build communities by healing people, and people were like, no, no, you can't heal on a Sunday, or no, 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 there's no way you could be doing this stuff like that because, you're not necessarily God. It just strikes me as odd because he was still doing good things, trying to build community and trying to extend, the kingdom or the kingdom network in the context of what he was put here to do.
Mm-hmm.
So it becomes difficult to navigate in creating networks. So like I think the lesson we have in that is, although we might try to extend and do stuff like that, it might not be possible to always merge with somebody who doesn't have the same values or ideas that you have.
Well, yeah, I mean, I think that's especially true when people put limits on what they think it should look like.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's what you were saying about Jesus, that they were putting limits on him. And because they had a way in which they were supposed to be, so they were trying to follow that and stick hard with that, and he was kind of bucking at that for a greater purpose. And I think that's the thing about networking, focusing on the greater purpose.
Good point.
Of what the networking is about. And a lot of times people are looking like one step ahead, but look a little further ahead to see how that can work together. But I don't think it's impossible. I think it's tough though, because I know that I gotta be honest, when people follow me on Twitter, I do look at their profile. I don't just follow everybody back.
Yeah.
You have some of those like sex accounts. I don't want to see that. So I'm paying attention to what that is. But then I'll see people and and I'll see certain political stuff, and that doesn't bother me really. But when I'll read some of their comments, I'm like, okay, is this a real person? And as I'm looking, I'm like, wow, we are vastly different.
Yeah.
Why are they following me?
Yeah. I get those too.
Yeah, and then I'm like, and so I think if they seem way too extreme for me, there are times when I don't follow them back.
Mm-hmm.
Because I'm kind of like, well, what's the greater thing here? And I don't know what it is. I can't see it.
Yeah.
So I don't follow them back, honestly. I don't. So I do think at times I even get tripped up by the values, the different beliefs and things like that. It doesn't have to trip me up. Like I could be a little more free with it, but it makes me uncomfortable, honestly. So I think, like I said, it's not impossible, but we make it normal.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. The next question. Oh, I think we kind of hit on this. We talked about same values, and then I guess the other question was, does your network have to include people that have the same religious beliefs?
Oh, for me, no. It doesn't.
Okay. Well, you guys should already know my network doesn't have to have the same religious beliefs.
I mean, we're growing the open box here, so you don't have to have the same religious beliefs.
Yeah. Duh.
And I
guess that was an easy question.
Yeah, I don't want to. I'm kind of comfortable. Sorry if we're looking like this.
Yeah.
I actually like the fact that we can have a network of people with different and differing beliefs, because I think it makes things more interesting. So I think for me, I think that's okay. I think it can make for good conversation, and it can help expand us in our way of thinking and our way of being, which doesn't mean that you change what you believe.
Yeah.
But it might open you up to being so strict and because sometimes when we're so strict, we become way too judgmental.
Mm-hmm.
But it's tough because, like I said, I do look at people on Twitter. I'd be like,
yeah. I think for me, and you'll see this start to unravel in some of the things that we do. I think for me, I crave a certain amount of diversity, even spiritual diversity, just because, like, God put us here, and we're all different for a particular reason. We all sense and experience God in so many different ways. So I think the idea of experienced people who experience God different just opens me up to a greater understanding of who and what God is. Now, like she said, like, there's some people who I probably just won't rock with at all, because we're so far off, and that's okay. But I think there's still ways to maybe provide, information, or even if the connections are so loose, because I think ultimately sometimes it has the potential to serve you like later on. So like if I go to a conference and I notice, and I've been to conferences where I noticed that I was the most progressive person in the room, and so I kind of had to sit back and be like, all right, well, I'm not here to change anybody's beliefs, and you're definitely not going to change my beliefs at this point in my life. So what what do I take from this particular discussion, or what am I actually going to be here for? Because I could still learn something valuable from somebody who doesn't have the same beliefs I have. And I actually did learn a lot of valuable things that day. But I had to sit back and be like, all right, based on certain discussions, I can see where this was going. I'm not even going to entertain that because I was already going to be the oddball out. So I'm like, you know what? But there's still something here for me to learn, and there's still, valuable lessons and relationships that actually can transpire out of that particular discussion or that particular environment.
Oh, I think that's good. I think that's like being purposeful about not being on the defensive.
Yeah.
Like, well, let me be sure I'm saying what I believe, or, oh, they said that, well, I have to have a rebuttal. Like, you don't always have to. So I think that's a good thing. And actually, as we were talking about this, it reminds me, I think it was yesterday, I was driving in the car, and I was thinking, wow, the life that I'm living, there are so many people on this planet who are living very different lives. And I'm like, that's pretty cool. And so I say this to say that even in networking, for me, it's important to be open because of that. Because there's like my world, it's not, I make my world very small.
Yep. So now that we've established the importance of networking, we see that the quote unquote dishonest manager shows us the value in building relationships because he was going to be cared for later on, once he got fired. What I wanted to do is talk about how we should actually go about networking. So based on this particular story, so I want to keep this part of the discussion in the context of the story. So the only point that I get from this story, we're going to keep it real basic and real simple, is in order to network, you have to provide value to others. That's from my standpoint in terms of what he did. That's the sole way to go about building a network, especially from a Christian perspective. So what this guy did was he decreased individuals' debt, and he provided value to each individual that he talked to about the debt, right? So I think when we network, let me keep it with me. Typically, when I would network, my idea was I wasn't going to give you value when I met you. I was going to give you my business card, and my expectation was you would get in contact with me so I could do a website for you or shoot some photography for you or do something like that. So to actually provide value when you meet somebody is kind of a shift, because it's like, all right, in order to provide value, you're going to have to understand, in this meeting, you have to understand individuals' needs or concerns and what they want. And then you're going to have to see if you could actually address that, or see if you know people that could address that.
Yeah, that's a good point.
So one networking event I went to maybe a couple of months ago, I tried this a little bit because I did something a little bit different. So we got there, and it was networking event was set up. Everybody was just kind of in the space working on their particular projects, and then we got to speak. And it was set up to actually the community was set up to provide value to each other. So like the community was set, or the meetup was set to, like, if you could help out in this particular project, here's how we can utilize your skill set, or here's where we need help. Can anybody in this circle help us out, right? So I went there. I didn't go there looking for business or anything like that. I just wanted to get a couple of contacts, but then I also wanted to tell people some about what we were doing. But then it switched for me. I'm like, all right, well, since I'm in this room, when I get up and give my introduction, I'm gonna say to individuals, I do social media, so if you guys need any social media advice right now, I'll give it to you, whatever it is, right? So then I coached a couple of people on how to grow their following and stuff like that. And I think that's probably the best way to go about networking because that's going to make you memorable to individual outside of just giving you a business card or them remembering your face. Because if somebody was like, hey, oh, I know you do ministry, here's X, Y, and Z, or here's somebody you can call, like, I'm going to remember that. Like, this guy, you know, or lady provided value to me. I don't even know them. They're a stranger. And they're actually making a deep impact. So even now, so like when I reach out to people on Twitter and I'm trying to learn about church planting, like I've had a couple of people give me some super valuable information, and they kind of just like, so I don't know, maybe because they're pastors, they kind of get used to giving and stuff like that. So they've been pouring out like, oh, here's all the resources that you need. Here's what you can take a look at it, and then in return, I'm like, all right, cool. That's dope. If you need any help with social media or websites and stuff like that, let me know because I'm kind of an expert in that arena. But then it creates these relationships that aren't necessarily superficial because there's a different type of bond established in the beginning.
Right.
Does that make sense?
No, it does. I think that's a good point. I mean, I think sometimes when it comes to networking, if you can't give something in the moment based on you, it is helpful to give it, like, to make a connection between person A and person B that doesn't include you, that only you is the connect. I've seen that. I've actually done that for people too, because sometimes in the moment I don't have anything for you, but you know what? I know a person.
Yeah.
Here, let me contact them for you, and I'm going to make that connection for you guys. And so I think that is a good thing too, because I think you're right. Like, business cards just become extra glitter.
I don't even listen. I got so many business cards. I don't even remember these people's faces. Like I'm like, oh, okay, I got these business cards, and you just get a stack of business cards, and you're like, I don't know any of these people. Like,
right.
So like, what's the point? But I do remember the individuals that I've spoken to on Twitter, and I'll reach out to them and shoot them emails every now and then. And they didn't even give me business cards. They just kind of replied to a tweet. So another thing, one of the things, actually, do I want to talk about that first? I'll talk about that last, right? So I wanted to give you an example of one of my coworkers. His name is James Ellis, right? I'll give a shout out to James. So he showed me how this actually worked in just a business standpoint, and he survived. We were doing contracting in IT. He survived onto maybe like 3 or 4 different contract changeovers. And there was a team of like maybe 12, and the team shrunk to like 3, and he was one of the individuals that was left. So I'm, in talking to him, he has a background. His grandfather owned the gas station, so his grandfather would teach him about customer service and the values of customer service. And he was like, you just always want to provide value to the individuals that you meet. So when I get to the job, we were at like a service desk, and I was doing like web stuff, but I also had to partake in the service desk. This guy would always get up and like rush to close out like the ticket. So like he would run around, he'd greet people, he'd be like, oh, I'll be right back. I gotta go check on the client and stuff like that. And I ain't gonna lie, like when I first met him, like because I wanted to do some work too, like I'm like, yo, this is getting annoying. Like this guy's stealing all of the tickets.
I hate it.
Yeah, but I'm like, yo, like how exactly am I gonna, get intertwined with the community if this guy is the community? And so, like, our manager let me know, like, yo, this dude saved the contract a couple of times because of his customer service, and he just taught me, like, you have to really just, you give and you don't necessarily expect anything back, but you just kind of put out there that, I'm kind of here for you if you need anything, and people on the contract love them. So I actually took that into my next job, and it actually worked out because I think I developed some real strong relationships. I would go around and I James Ellis the environment. I Ellis the environment. So every day I'd purposely get up out of my seat and be like, hey, need anything going on with the website, any tech-related issues? And I think I build a pretty strong network, not expecting anything in it, in return, but understanding that, maybe if I put something out there, these individuals would potentially look out for me or have, resources for us later on. So James, I thank you for that.
They kind of expecting something in return, but maybe like not in the moment. It's kind of just keeping the bigger picture like a greater picture, which is not like about the people that you're necessarily talking to right there, but the bigger picture that just down, like planting seeds that the bigger picture that this might grow into something, because not every seed is going to sprout.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't really have any expectations.
Yeah.
So I don't like, even though there may be potential for something else. Like if nothing happens, it's just like, oh well, I just kind of provided value,
Right.
and that was it. So I don't know.
Ellis is the situation.
Yeah, James Ellis, the situation. Um, all right, so we're gonna talk about. I want to talk about a networking fail. You remember the time we went to the networking thing? Where it was me.
Speed networking?
Yeah, speed networking.
Yes.
Okay. So one of the networking things that happen is, and so you have to be careful. I would say it's okay to network, but it's kind of, you have to be careful with who you network with. Do you know what I'm about to talk about?
I do.
Okay. So Brooke and I are going together, right? And she's
I hope this story is funny.
no, she's
keeps laughing.
because no, but you were there to provide value. You're like, I'm a life coach. I'm gonna introduce you to my business. Now, me being a former, club goer, because this thing was in like a club and stuff like that. So we get in there.
Oh, that wasn't speed networking. That was another network.
Was it?
Okay.
Okay, yeah. So we get in there. I'm at Brooks doing her thing and stuff like that. So this guy comes up to a young dude too. And Brooks, giving her spiel. She's providing value and stuff like that. Oh, I'm a life coach. I do all this, blah, blah, blah. I can sense that this guy, he cares not. He's there on the prowl. So I'm just kind of in the cut, like looking back. And he's like, okay. And he was like, she was like, do you have a business card? He was like, no, but I can take your number down. So I'm like, okay. And then he pulls out his phone. He's like, hey, you mind if I take a selfie? I'm like, okay. I'm like, oh, so let's all take a selfie. And I could tell from his awkwardness that he just was like, oh, like you with him. Did he say like, oh, you with him? It was a while back. He was like, oh, okay. I'm sorry, no disrespect. I'm like, no, we can all take a selfie. Let's just be here for networking, right? I do IT. I've been doing my own business for like the last 14 years. What do you do? So I put that in there as a point to say that sometimes when you provide value to others, you have to be careful because some people may be out to take advantage of you. So you kind of have to set boundaries with that, right? So one of the people I listen to online a lot, his name is Gary Vee. What he said is the only people he provides 100% value to with like in terms of measurement, like on a scale of 1 to 100, is his wife and his family. So he'll go all in for family. In terms of anybody else, he says he's trying to provide at least like 51%. So right beyond what they're providing, he expects like 49% in return or something like that. Mm-hmm. But there's limitations to how much you're going to give of yourself. Otherwise, I guess from his perspective, he feels like he's going to be taken advantage of. So I would say at certain points, like if you're overextending yourself and you're pouring out so much value in an effort to build a network, I think it becomes dangerous. So like if we tie it back to the story of the shopkeeper, he wasn't overextending himself. He was just kind of being like, hey, I'll cut your debt.
And he did it different for different people.
Yeah, you're right. He actually did it different. That's an excellent point. So he provided different. High five! I didn't even notice that. High five. So then that lets us know with that you don't have to give the same value or same. You don't have to pour out as much to all the individuals, even based on the story that we see.
Right.
Good point. That's a good team.
I would also add for the fellow introverts out there, you have to be very purposeful about who you're providing value to and who you're networking with. But what I mean purposeful is, I know what I learned years ago about networking was, go to these events, have a bunch of business cards, meet everybody you can. And for me, that doesn't work. And for a lot of introverts, it's overwhelming. Mm-hmm. And don't be a shy introvert, because then you really are like, eek. So you have to be very intentional about what it is that you want to do at whatever event. And so for me, sometimes I'll go and my goals can be very small because meeting a lot of people for me at times can be okay, but it's draining. So okay, well I'll meet, I'm going to this big event. All right, I'll meet 2 people.
Yeah.
I'll meet 5 people with the intent to just connect with them, or with the intent to learn more about this, or to do X, Y, and Z. So being very purposeful about what it is that I'm seeking to do for myself. Like Brooke said, like it's not necessarily about getting something from the person, but for us introverts, it's about what's gonna still hold our energy level to where it needs to be so that we don't get drained. And to just be intentional. So I'm going to throw that in there.
Yeah, I mean, you make an excellent point. I mean, I just look back at the story. The story talks about 2 individuals that the manager actually spoke to, but it doesn't necessarily outline how many. So it's not saying that he spoke to all of everyone it just kind of gives a vagueness there. So I mean, that's a good point that our networks, that they don't necessarily have to include the whole world per se.
Sometimes it's not about actually all the time it's not about the quantity, but the quality. Because not everybody is gonna do something great with you down the line. It could really just be 2 people. So really it's about connecting with the right people.
Yep. And in closing, because that's all we have, is so when I talk about provide value, basically in a nutshell, it's an aspect of really just loving others. So like, it's a different type of love. It's not necessarily romantic love, but when we're called to love our neighbor as we love ourselves, when Jesus actually calls us to do that type of stuff, we provide things, in a loving manner. Like I said, not necessarily expecting anything, but because God has kind of instilled this into us to actually love and provide and help others out. And I think for us, I think if we look at networking like what can I give instead of what I'm going to receive, I think that right there will solidify your network. Your network will begin to grow, and you'll actually begin to meet people who will remember you. And you won't just become a business card that they toss in the trash.
Yeah. Good stuff.
And that's all I got.
All right.
Sounds
good.
So we think.
Get out there and network.
Yeah, get out there and network. So we're doing a 3-week series on relationships. So I wanted to start with networking, non-romantic relationships. That is, so we have different topics about building relationships, building friendships. So I wanted to start with networking because networking is a little bit more general. It's not as intimate as a best friend or a close friend. So I wanted to start, at a real high level. And so stay on the lookout for the next 2 weeks. We'll be talking about friendships. Is there anything else we want to announce? So I think that's it.
Well, the other thing is, in the month of September, we are going to serve the homeless. We are doing toiletries this time around, and we are seeking to do 150 bags of toiletries. And so we have our GoFundMe.
One S and the number 4.
Oh yes,
the number 4. It's 1S because we ran out of space.
GoFundMe.com/toiletries number 4
for homeless. Yes.
1S.
Yep. Or you can just visit theopenbox.com. I'll have that posted tonight.
Yes. So please.
We're almost at our goal.
Donate to that, and also if you want to come out, we would love that too. All right.
That's it. So I am at Mr. Terrell Harris on everything. She is at Landon Brooke on everything. Yes. Follow us on Facebook. Visit theopenbox.com. And also, finally, we are building our team. So if you're interested or you think you can help out or you know somebody that can help out, shoot us a message. Let us know. Comment below. Peace and blessings. We are gone. You guys have a great evening.